Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Digging Up Dillinger. I'm your host, Joe Malillo, and we got the team here again. Of course, Todd Hiles, Travis Thompson, Stuart Fillmore. We're back for another week, and we're going to continue on the episodes we're going to continue down the Fillmore report on this episode. Last time we left off with some scarring and information on that. But today we're going to bring you something really special. We're going to dive into the fingerprint discrepancies that Stewart found, especially because, as we all know, we've discussed this before. The fingerprints were really the coup de grace for the FBI. Like, we got them. These are it. We've matched the fingerprints. Here it is in black and white ink. We got them, but yet there's still some questions when Stuart goes into it. So we're excited to bring you this episode. And hey, guys, welcome back. Love to see you guys.
Hey,
Hey,
man,
everybody.
I love it. Yeah, happy to be here.
Um, before with the fingerprints, real quick, this week we hit 1,000 followers. We're pre-recording a lot of these podcasts so that we have good content for y'all to listen to when we're ready to go. And we just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
What an
Thank you.
incredible thing.
it's really
TikTok,
cool.
we have 1,100 followers as of this moment. And, obviously you guys are interested in this, but really Texas crime travelers, you guys have the base. You have 250, 300,000 followers.
Yeah,
So they're rabid for this.
yeah.
We've had
My
some great comments too.
I was at a wedding this weekend with my daughter. My wife and I were at a wedding and then anyway we visited with our daughter this weekend, and my daughter said, one of my friends called me and said, "Is your dad a TikTok star?" And my daughter grudgingly admitted, "Yeah, he's gone viral a couple of times."
A
So
couple of times. You got millions of views, Stuart.
So, yeah, I don't think of it as a TikTok star or viral or anything. I just like talking about, crimes and kind of stuff like that, and and people find it interesting. So it's a good thing, and I hope that this actually ends up being the exact same thing because this is a fascinating case to me. There's some really cool elements to it, and it's an unsolved mystery, and I love that stuff.
Some of the stuff that you talk about, you give your opinion and you're based on your experience. And this is really, you're hands on with this one. This is a little different for you because you're so hands on. I mean, heck, we're about to read the Fillmore report again for fingerprint discrepancies. So I
Yeah.
bet it's
And
because
I appreciate that you called it the Fillmore report. I mean, that makes it sound really, really official.
it's
Really,
cool.
what this was just my way of documenting all the things I was finding that when I started this, I didn't expect to find.
Yeah.
So that's really what this is. But yeah, it ends up being a lot of different questions in this case.
And here's a little unknown fact that a lot of people don't know. When Stewart started in the FBI, he did not start in the Chicago field office, but he transferred there as soon as he can. And I think the only reason he went there was he wanted to find the Dillinger file in the office and read it. And I think he took it home and read it to his kids. That's how he put his kids to bed at night. He read them the Dillinger FBI file.
With a glass of whiskey and a warm cookie, Stuart would sit down in a rocking chair and read his children the Dillinger file.
Yes.
Well, no whiskey tonight. I had plenty of that at the wedding we were at last night. So
Sounds like you had a good time. Well,
yep.
we're again, we're super excited that you're here, Stuart. I mean, you're just you're one of a kind, man. Every week we get to know each other a lot better. You're a really special dude, and you put your heart and soul and stuff. So
Well,
this
appreciate
is
that. Thank you. I
we
no,
can see
I
it coming
love I
through.
love you guys. I love being here. This is fun. I do this if we only had one viewer or no viewers. This is
True,
just it's to me. This is fun.
true. Yeah, I think I would agree with you. And then Travis, you had an interesting discovery this week. You were browsing on YouTube. I was in the middle of watching a movie with my family, like in the movie theater, and you send us this link to, I don't know, I guess they found $300 million or $300,000 worth of John Dillinger's gold on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean Josh Gates there, I guess started went on with this investigation after we did ours, and found this gold in Egypt.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. So my heart dropped because I thought, oh my God, investigation unknown, expedition unknown.
Expedition
Expedition
unknown.
unknown.
They they must have continued without the nephews, the Dillinger nephews, Travis and Mike, and they found the gold somewhere. And then when you go on it on YouTube, it's literally clickbait. It's like
Yeah.
they take clips of the episodes and put a little voiceover over it, and it was about John Dillinger. And then they were in the desert, digging. So I was in the movie theater clicking through at 10 seconds, just like double clicking to the right, just to like scan it real quick. And to me, it was all clickbait. So thanks for giving me a heart attack, Travis.
Hey, I mean, it gave me a heart attack when I first seen it. Like it was just posted and how it looked. I thought it was the Discovery's actual YouTube channel, but it's Discover
With an
channel
R,
with an
like
R, and
Discover.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually
and
pretty creative.
It is
it
very. I
was
mean,
yeah,
that's
it was creative, and it
that's
had
what we
like peak.
call a faceless YouTube channel that makes money because they had 45,000 views
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
the first day.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
And
mean
when I
they
saw
got
the text from Travis, I immediately thought that this was money that was going to go to the nephew, that Travis was going to get this 300 million. I thought for sure he'd at least give the Texas Crime Travelers, I don't know,
Y-
$1 million.
Yeah,
And now
exactly.
we start thinking about what am I going to buy? I got to buy
oh,
something with $1
I was
million.
gonna hook you up. I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
leave you guys out of it. I'd at least let you hold it.
and you won a trip to Little Bohemia. Congratulations. We're going up to go drink at that bar together. That would be fun though. So
Yes.
with our followers, because we have so many, we can go live. And this is we're going to talk about this because we're going to do this. We're going to go live in some really cool spots together as much as we can. Obviously,
Yep.
you guys come up to Indiana and we make this happen, but think about the possibilities of us now being able to go live to our followers doing crazy cool things like heck going to the museums, talking to those people. We get a little bit special access. We can bring them in with us. We dig on the Dillinger family farm again. If we do that, we're going live, baby. We're gonna have the metal
Yeah.
detectors. We're literally gonna
Yeah.
be. You guys are gonna be over our shoulder as we're digging in the Dillinger family farm trying to find artifacts. So we're very excited overall.
Yep,
Pause.
absolutely.
We
Definitely
are.
excited.
We couldn't be more excited. We are ready though to talk about the fingerprints. So I will share the screen here on to everybody, and then we can go right into the Dillinger, or I'm sorry, the Fillmore report. See if it pops up. There you go. All right, so fingers fingerprint discrepancies. This is really interesting, Stuart. And why don't you go through it? Do you want to read through it a little bit?
Sure, I can. I mean, to start off with, I think people hear fingerprints and may probably have an overall concept of what that means. That each person has a unique fingerprints, and I think for the most part that's borne out to be true. Although I think it's not 100% accurate that every person has a unique set of fingerprints. But let's just assume that that is true. But the way that actually the fingerprint science works is I just gave a general overview of that. It's fairly in the weeds for folks. But the way it works is that there's three types of fingerprints the structure of the fingerprints fall under three categories: loops, whorls, or arches. And if you look at the what do you call this right here? I'm at the tip of your finger. It's going to have one of these three patterns right in the middle of it. Okay, and then just off to the side of it is a little formation that's usually called a delta. And so the way that it works is you, if like okay, so you can uh, look at the loop, the whirl of the arch, and that's your starting point, that center point, and then you count over to this delta formation, however many ridges that is, and that gives you a certain uh,
Baseline.
baseline. Exactly, great term. And then back in the days before computers, when people looked at this stuff manually, they developed a system. It was a classification system, and that was one of the initial ways to eliminate at least 2/3 of fingerprint possibilities. So, for instance, let's say on the right thumb, if it's a loop, you can, and I've got a really funny story about this, but if it's a loop, then you can eliminate that that 2/3 of your fingerprint population that have whorls and arches on the right thumb. So so it narrows down for. There's other methods and techniques that really are beyond my expertise in it, because I'm not a fingerprint examiner or expert. I've had basic training in fingerprints, and I've had some cases, not a whole lot, but some cases where it was an issue. So I mean, I generally know what it is, and I know
Well,
what
thank
they're.
God you're not drinking whiskey tonight,
Yes, yeah,
because
so I know what they're looking for, and generally how it works. So I don't want to put people to sleep on this, because it can be a little tedious. But the funny story is, this was literally my first day in the office, and I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there were a couple of old timers there that had been in the FBI longer than I'd been alive, and they had someone had called in a fugitive lead, uh, for a top 10 fugitive in the United States, a big deal if you catch one of these guys. And they had done some preliminary work, had been done, and the call on whoever this fugitive was, and they checked some photos of this guy, and sure enough, man, he does look like him. So, and I could tell honestly by the way that these old timers kind of reacted to it, that they were taking it seriously, because by that point in their career, most FBI agents and cops get pretty cynical, and they don't really, they usually think, oh, this is bullshit, we're not going to worry about this. But I could tell these guys were taking it seriously. So we get to the place, and contact the guy. He's very cooperative. And one of the old timers takes the guy like his right hand and looks at his thumb and goes, "That's not him. Let's get out of here." And I thought, "Oh my God, these guys are so good. They can do fingerprint analysis literally, just right there on the spot, with the naked eye." But what I later found out was that he, in his early days, had been a fingerprint examiner at the FBI headquarters, and that's all he was doing. Was he knew that
wow.
he knew that he was looking for a
Yeah, he was looking
whirl
for a
pattern.
loop or a circle or a
Exactly, and
whirl.
the
Yeah.
and the guy had one of the other formations, so he knew right off that's not him. So it was actually a pretty cool little method to quickly identify somebody. But anyway, so that's just the very, very general basics of fingerprint science.
But let's add too that the FBI were the leading experts in fingerprints,
The,
and they had an incredible lab for this and a filing
yes,
system for all this.
yes, and
Even back in
again,
1934.
oh, but yeah, but well before that, because there are a lot of things you can say about J. Edgar Hoover. There's a lot that some of it is not good. There were definitely some things that he did that maybe looking back in with hindsight, shouldn't have been done. There's some uh, talk about his personal life. I think that maybe or may not be relevant, but there's one thing that it is undeniable is J. Edgar Hoover was an administrative genius, and the filing system that he set up in the FBI, the fingerprint system, to be able to track thousands and thousands of fingerprint analysis, and identification, the filing system to be able to track leads all over the country, all in the days before computers. It was done very efficiently. In fact, I'm so old that when I got into the FBI, we had computers, but for the most part, it was still under the older system. And when we first switched over to computers, I actually found it to be more inefficient than the old system, to be honest. But so anyway, yes. So this was well before 1934. This was already an established method and system by the time Dillinger came along. And so one of the first thing that when they had killed Dillinger at the Biograph Theater, this was priority number one. Let's fingerprint this guy and let's confirm this identity. And as we had mentioned in, I think, a previous episode, Dillinger had his fingerprints mutilated. And again, just the tips of the fingers on all 10 of his fingers had been mutilated, and also the deltas. So again, under that method of kind of counting ridges between the deltas and the loop, whorl, or arches, was kind of not, you couldn't do it. But the fingerprints were not mutilated enough that you couldn't still analyze the outer ridges around where those mutilated loop whorls or arches were. So that's an example there of one of the dead guy's fingerprints, his right middle finger, and you can see in the middle there where there's really nothing. That's just mutilated thing scarring.
Crazy that the acid could do that. I didn't think, I mean, that's like, I
Well,
don't know.
I mean, the description of how it was done by the two doctors that did it, that were involved in it, actually is even worse than just putting a little acid on your finger. They actually cut into the finger and then put the acid into that cut. So it just sounded like brutally
That sounds
painful.
horrible.
Yes,
I
but
cry when I get lemon in my cuts.
exactly. So, and and this was not something that just unique to Dillinger. This was something that that apparently a lot of outlaws at that time thought was a good idea to do. But it's only going to work for you one time because they're going to fingerprint you again, and now those mutilations will be on file and they'll be just as unique. So it was only a one-time thing, and I'm not sure the pain would have been worth it. But nonetheless, that's what that is when you see on the screen there. That's
Yeah,
just an
again,
example of one of the mutilated fingers.
part of us doing this on camera and sharing in our meetings is being able to look at this together and go through this together, right? So,
Yeah, right.
um this is there are a lot of similarities, and you could see them on these right thumbs, right? You could see the
Yes.
right thumb,
Yep.
that little arch kind of, and the same goes for the January 1934 versus the morgue in July of 1934. So January 34, was that Arizona, him getting arrested?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So um yeah, they look almost identical.
Yes. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
from
the
a
overall
layman's term.
formation is the same. You can clearly see it. True fingerprint experts, have names for those formations that are highlighted. Um, but again, if you
The
one of the
wishbone. I just
so
made
it'll
some up.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Looks like a
and that's
wishbone.
it does. It
Tuning
looks like
fork.
it looks like a wishbone, and so
Roller coaster.
and
There's another one. Sorry.
if you count the ridges between those wishbones, I mean the wishbones
Yeah.
themselves match,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
you count the ridges in between, and those match up. So I mean that's a very unique situation that I to me is almost like just looking at that one match, you'd say, wow, okay, that's him. It's got to be him. What are the odds that that's not that this can't be him? But on the same token,
Seriously.
my thought process is well, then, okay, well, that's him. Let's start looking at other patterns, and let's make sure let's really go as far as we can to make sure that this identification is correct. And then I start looking at these other patterns, and
Yeah.
and I see several where I find a matching ridge pattern, and then I may I'll count and look for other ridge patterns near there, and I can't find anything matching. And then on some fingers, like for instance, what's up now is the left middle finger. I couldn't find anything that matched. Nothing. So if one finger
Is it
matches, but then the others don't match, I don't really have an explanation for that. All I know is that the FBI at the time were absolutely certain. They've relied on this for years. There's no question about it that he was identified positively by the fingerprints. I've never actually seen an official report detailing what the matching points of identification were. I've never seen a report detailing the number of matching points of identification. So I would think that this is the one thing that they relied on with such certainty. I just can't imagine that there's not a very very detailed report, especially considering that was one of J. Edgar Hoover's very very strict rules about everything had to be documented.
they use their clout card on this one?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like,
because
we've been doing this for years. We can knock this one out.
now there is and I know there's a separate report, and I think I cited it in here and and put a couple of quotes in it from it. But there was an FBI agent that wrote a memo saying that if effectively that he found some. I think he's basically talking about the same discrepancies that I found, and he says I can't really explain what it is, but I'm going to speculate that it was that the scarring basically pulled, for lack of a better term, or stretched some of the surrounding skin, and therefore it would have maybe caused those other nearby ridge patterns
Sure.
to be misshapen. And that's not that's a to me that's a fairly reasonable explanation for it, and it very well could be the situation. Um, but I found a case where we all think that the fingerprints are pretty pretty certain, and there's an interesting case in Spain, I think, maybe in the early 2000s, that where a guy was in jail for several months based on two positive FBI fingerprint identifications that were done with computers, not with some guy looking through a little magnifying glass. And it turns out that there was an inspector general did a report on it and found a lot of different things that the examiners had a lot of pressure on them because this was like a terrorist bombing case, and that in the pressure to make an identification that they had made some errors. And but again, they have the benefit of of computer analysis, but and I think there were some other issues too that might have been very similar fingerprints. But mistakes can be made with fingerprints, and I tell you, there would have been uber pressure on whoever was doing this fingerprint analysis on Dillinger. They had a dead guy a month or 6 weeks earlier. They had killed a civilian at a shootout where they had the Dillinger gang trapped. That every last man got away. So they needed this to be a positive identification. So I can promise you there was pressure on whoever it was that was looking at it.
Todd, would you have said based on the fingerprints that was John Dillinger, or do you think the one matching and some not matching kind of proves it's him?
And I think the some matching and not matching might be the idea that if Dillinger orchestrated this imposter theory, and maybe he made this up about the whole acid on the fingertips of him, maybe it was done on the imposter. So that way they would look at it and say, well, it looks like it could be Dillinger or it can't be Dillinger. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They did it that way.
Yep.
That looks to me, I can't in my yeah, I agree. I see what you're saying, but I mean like that did Dillinger just have like a perfect twin? You know what I mean? Like you can get away with the face, the eyes, the mouth, kind of looking kind of the same, and like you got to have the like perfect doppelganger. And then to have the fingerprints kind of match, like, oh, it's like this is a straight up clone. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
it's
I don't know how many points did they say actually matched his? Did they ever
Again,
say?
I've never seen an official report that specifically states a number.
And
No, but
I don't know for this whole Henry fingerprint classification if it has to be 25 matching
Yeah,
points, and then you say it's that person. I don't know
yeah,
what that number is.
I think it varies what certain courts accept as the number of matching points that it takes. I think it might be like 15 is the minimum, but I'm someone could fact check me on that.
I'm literally doing it.
Okay, and I know it, and I'm almost certain too. It varies by court.
8 to 16 matching characteristics of points similar
Okay,
fingerprints. There are
yeah,
ridges and points, but there is not a minimum point match, although convention has required 12 points to be matching. So somewhere between 8 and 16
yeah.
matching
So if
points.
if I'm a defense attorney, I'm going to acknowledge that, yeah, maybe by coincidence we do have some matching ridge patterns on one finger, but we have some absolutely non-matching patterns in the same area of the fingers, on other two fingers. So, um, to me, that's enough for reasonable doubt to get someone acquitted.
Isn't that what we're going for anyway? Reasonable doubt?
Well,
yeah.
we're going for probable cause, but it's
Yeah.
certainly it certainly, adds to the list of questions, and that's again, that's all this is there's just unanswered questions on this thing.
How high ranking is this? This is a big one for me. To like, I'm moving back towards it's him,
Yeah,
right? For at
yeah.
least in my mind. Travis, how do you feel after the fingerprint discussion here? Do you feel like you're moving towards, and don't be biased, you know?
No, the ears still have me. How are you going to change the ear shape when tops of the ears go forward, the guy on the morgue go backwards? I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you change that.
Yeah.
That's what's got me still believing that it's more likely not him.
I would have to look at the documentation of when the fingerprints were taken. If they were taken in the alleyway, taken at the morgue,
Yeah.
what was the chain of custody of that fingerprint card?
Yeah, and again, none of that is documented. So, Travis makes a good point. Honestly, the fingerprints and what we see just on these fingerprint cards could be manipulated. No question about it. The pictures of the ears a little harder to manipulate.
Yeah, I mean, just the pure fact of break chain of command, like
Yes.
that we don't have that documented, so therefore they can't really use it as evidence for that's John,
Yes.
because we can prove right here we got it at the scene right as soon as he died,
Yes.
literally, and then we see those pictures of people like crowding around him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of question marks on chain of command that I think
Chain of
almost
custody.
Well, yeah, you're
chain of
meaning
Yeah,
chain of
chain of
sorry
custody.
custody.
sorry
Yeah.
chain of
But
custody.
yeah, Joe, one thing
The TV
too.
reporter got that one wrong, folks. You guys,
Hey, that's what we're here for, man.
chain of custody, got it.
Hey, so one thing to just kind of maybe uh, highlight, that still to me, I'm still questioning these fingerprints is when okay, so they had a coroner's inquest after Dillinger's death. This is just a hearing that they have to basically just put on the record what happened, and it was although to everyone at the time, I think it was pretty clear, but there was an FBI agent that testified at that named Earl Richmond, and they asked him a lot of different questions. And then toward the end of the hearing, they ask him, "Are you positively convinced that Dillinger has been identified?" Uh, and rather than just say yes, Richmond's answer was, "To the best of the scientific means we have available, he's been identified."
That's the
So
most political answer I've ever heard in my entire life.
Exactly, exactly. There was not a yes in that sentence. It just was okay. So now we have a much more definitive means available in DNA than we do fingerprints. So
Hmm.
that's something that we ultimately on this show we're going to be talking about. We're going to be exploring, but that was a very cryptic answer, I thought, to something that just should have been a straightforward yes.
And probably for a lot of listeners, that's the first time that they just heard that. And I
Yeah,
want to say maybe it was a year ago.
Yeah.
I was riding around with Stuart in the car, and Stuart brought that up, and it just hit me. Like, why would you give that answer in
yeah,
a courtroom?
yeah, exactly.
May My only feeling about that is if he was forced to say it, and that was his way of kind of not saying what they
Right.
wanted, but enough to make them happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything but yes would have raised flags, red flags.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe answer the question, just say yes. And then, if you want to add, some context to it and strengthen your answer somewhat or explain your answer and clarify, great. But he just never said yes to it.
Yeah,
So I just
yeah.
thought it was weird.
Well, and for the viewers who don't understand, today we question law enforcement, we question the government over every little thing they say to us, right? Back then in the 30s, people were more opt to, okay, the police say this happened, it happened. The government said it happened, it happened. They wanted to question it.
Yeah.
Not like today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Fall in line. Listen to what we say. This is the truth. And Hoover was what, like you said, he was a mastermind of propaganda in a lot of
He was.
ways.
He was.
So
He was. I think maybe a nicer way to say it. He was good at public relations, but
Yeah.
it effectively is the same thing.
If
Yeah.
he had a TikTok channel, he'd have over 100,000 followers, maybe 1 million.
He'd be kicking your butts. That's for sure. He'd be way over your heads, way over our heads. All right, we're about ending here. The podcast. This episode was awesome. I really appreciate you diving deep into the fingerprint analysis. I was looking at my finger the whole time. I was like, I have circles on this one. I have loops on this one.
Yeah.
But I get it. The delta counting, it was a good way to do it. It's absolutely incredible that Hoover created this too. I mean, we can't
Well, I don't think
leave.
that Hoover necessarily created fingerprint science, but he certainly figured out a way to classify it so
Yes.
that you could efficiently analyze it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And to
exactly.
use fingerprints to go after fugitives.
Yes,
When he
exactly.
had nothing else. I mean, hell, they like we talked about. He didn't even have a picture. They didn't even have a picture of John.
That's right.
They're like,
Yep.
who's this guy? What's it? Brown hair, blue eyes. Oh God, where? Okay, this guy
Right.
could be anybody.
And those blue eyes turned brown by the time he got to the autopsy.
That's right. If you don't remember,
In the heat. In the
in the
heat.
heat, it turned brown. That's right. Guys, this is awesome. We're super excited to have you here. Make sure
Yes.
to like, subscribe, comment, and share. We're getting your comments. I know we're getting
Yeah.
them. Some of them are good. I'm sorry for saying blues bar or jazz bar and not blues bar about the slippery noodle, guys. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I like saw it in my brain as jazz. I don't know why. I got getting crushed out there sometimes. No, we love the comments, and there's been some really
Yes.
interesting stuff, and keep sharing those comments because as we read them, because I'm literally reading every single one. Things are popping up that people have stories, and we
Yeah.
reach out to us on our Gmail, hit us
Yep.
up on our email.
Yep.
Yep. We
Definitely.
want to hear it.
We
Absolutely.
we want to hear more detail about it because we don't know if that'll help us in our investigation, or if you have artifacts or some sort of note or diary or
Yep.
something that the older generation left you in regards to the story, or is it just that they told this story when they were younger, or when you were younger, and you just heard it through the grapevine, kind of telephone style. So anything would help us. Diggingupdillinger@gmail.com. Sign up for the emails. And then also we're going to be we're on TikTok, Facebook. You can message us there too. We'll look at the messages. So with that, guys, what do you guys say? Keep digging.
Keep digging.
Keep digging.
Keep the
We'll
comments
see you
coming.
next time, guys. Okay, this is going to end.